Michael Waugh recently won a golden guitar for his song Dirty River from the album The Cast, which was produced by Shane Nicholson. And I believe it's Michael's first golden guitar, but I'm sure it will not be the last. And as I said, 4 albums, or maybe I didn't say 4 albums, but 4 albums, all with Shane Nicholson, which is quite an achievement. And I spoke to Michael recently, but I think there's always something to talk about with Michael. His songs alone are so rich and complex. We could talk about those for hours. So Michael, lovely to talk to you again.
You too, Sophie. Thank you.
Now, I was at Tamworth this year and I was in the audience for the Golden Guitars when your name was announced, but you were not there because you were in COVID isolation. You were up on a screen in a fabulous suit with a recorded message. But I was also in the audience the next night for Shane Nicholson's show when you had made it to Tamworth and you were brought up on stage to sing a song, and unbeknownst to everyone, including you, Shane had at his feet in a bag your golden guitar, and he brought it out to present to you, and it was such a special moment for the audience. And I felt, in a way, this may not be accurate for you, but it felt more special than actually getting it on the night itself, because it was an audience that was so thrilled for you. Every single person, I think there were tears. I was crying. So I'm wondering if it felt special for you, or more special than it might have felt than receiving it the night before.
Absolutely. Like it's the only way that I got to experience receiving the award. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what it would have been like to have been in that audience and been surprised with the win on the night of the award ceremony, because like I was so deeply convinced that it was, Troy Cassar-Daley or Andrew Farriss or the Wolf Brothers or Matt Scullion was going to take it home. It was not even within a realm of possibility that I was going to win it. And I kept making jokes that at least I knew that I could get drunk at the awards ceremony, because I knew that there was no risk of me having to get up and speak in public. And there it was. And I was like, so I was sober because I had to record they make you kind of like, you're nominated and you can't be there, so you've got to record acceptance speeches. So I'd recorded the acceptance speeches in advance of the night, and I think it was about 10 in the morning. So I hadn't been doing any day drinking that day, so it was fine. But yeah, no, when I think that even though my boyfriend and I were in Bundaberg on the night of the awards, and I was really sad. Like, I really wanted to be there. But I had this realization that the three, like when you win an award like that, it's not just you who's winning. It is the team around you. And for me, that was Shane, who produced the record. It was Graham Thompson, who's my manager and, one of my best friends, and who's just kind of journeyed with me through the last couple of years and helped and supported and promoted and advocated and organised. And Jules Delamere, who's my publicist, who is just such, it's not just that she kind of tells people that I'm good and tries to line up interviews. It's that she's genuinely a fan of what I do, and also has become one of my dearest friends too. So like, I mean, the last couple of years has been so intense for me, and those 3 people have just been like my key confidants and counsellors and support people, as well as being the people who were the team behind this music. So the fact that I couldn't be there was bad on that Wednesday night of the award ceremony, but they were, and really it was about them. So having said that, like when I got up on stage, so TJ and I had driven for 9 hours. There was a 2-hour flight involved. And we walked into Shane's show, I think about 2 songs into his show, and I immediately downed 2 glasses of wine because it had been that kind of week. And then when he called me up on stage, I was like, you bastard, Nicholson, there's no way that I want to do anything in public right now apart from perhaps fall asleep in a corner somewhere. And then when he surprised me with that, I was pretty overwhelmed. it was beautiful, but it was pretty overwhelming because it just took me by surprise. And yeah, and like I said, it was just all those people that I love who were just so key in that experience of getting me to win it. Like I'm talking like I've just won the Nobel Peace Prize, which is not, but it was like, like it's kind of a moment of recognition, and it's been a pretty tough time. So it was kind of it was a win. It was a win.
Well, and it's a peace prize in its own way, because music does so much good work in the world, and it's not as obvious work as maybe the work that goes to the Nobel Peace Prize. But I often say with songs and with art in general, you'll never know everyone you touch, because not everyone who's been positively affected by your work gets in contact, but it filters out there, and this is really the only way you get that tangible recognition of what's been going on, and this is from your peers from the industry, and it's 4 albums in, and you have put in the work to get there.
Yeah, but it's still like, it's still a surprise, and it was still a massive surprise. Like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody else, but who was nominated. But Troy's record is pretty extraordinary, and that guy has been working his guts out, and also Heritage Song of the Year, and he's a First Nations person, and I was just like, I'm kind of honoured even to be in the same category as him, and look, I know, we've all got stories to tell, and they're all important, but so not that I was willing to contact anyone and go, you made a mistake, and do a Kanye and demand that Troy take the award. I'm happy to take it, but yeah.
It was a very competitive field. Now, Mr. Nicholson has been your producer for all 4 of your albums, and obviously that's a relationship that has developed over time, but I'm wondering if it clicked from the start.
That's a really good question. I met Shane when he was going through, I think, a really challenging time in his life. It was around the end of his marriage, and I was going through a pretty tumultuous time in my life as well, because there was problems happening with my son, and my mum was sick, and there was a range of kind of stuff going on for me. And I think too that initially, because we were both coming from a place of like having such big stuff going on in our own world, there was like we just immediately kind of clicked on a friendship level, and that it was like, I'm going through all this, I'm going through all of that. We'd have this moment at the end of each. First of all, I'll go back. The context of us meeting, we tried to reach out to Shane because I'd heard a record that he made with Jenny Queen, which I thought was like extraordinary production. And I was like, we were looking for a producer, and I said, I want that guy to work on this record. And my manager at the time reached out to Shane and kept reaching out and kept not hearing back from him, because I think he had lots of stuff going on in his world. We were both playing at Port Fairy Folk Festival, and I was booked to do this Songwriters in the Round thing, which was 7 people sitting on a stage, and it was song for song, like, and we kind of went up and down the line twice. And I was sitting at the end of the line, and there were 6 famous people and me. And I kind of felt really overwhelmed because Shane Nicholson was one of those guys. I'm like, we've been trying to talk to him and he's not answering our calls. Anyway, I started playing a song that ended up being on the first record, called a song called Paul, which is this song about bullying and kind of being different in a country town. And it really, like, there was about 2,000 people in the venue, and it struck a chord with everyone in the room, and there was this standing ovation at the end. And I'd never experienced anything like that before as a performer, of just having this moment of real, it was this electric kind of experience. And my friends who were in the audience said that through that performance, Shane just kept looking around down the aisle and looking at who is that guy. And I was like, oh, I don't believe it. And there's, but then just after that, he returned the call and was like, yeah, I want to do this record. So it was really beautiful that I kind of felt like my songs kind of were part of the reason why he reached out. There's actually a video of that performance on YouTube, actually, which is great. I've got that record, not necessarily Shane looking at me, but I've got that record of that performance. But then we met up briefly once, and then the first time that I went to Shane's house, I was coming to his place in Gosford, which is actually Copacabana, so just outside of Gosford, where his studio was. And I was going to be staying with him, and I was really this famous guy, and I'm going to be staying with him. He's the guy I want to produce my record, and he might have liked one of my songs, but I don't know how this is going to go. And anyway, so I was on a train heading to see him, and I'd never been to Gosford before either, and sent my partner a message saying, I'm on the train to Gosford, but it auto-corrected, and the message that I actually sent was, I'm on the train to Godforsaken. And so I was on this, so I got off, it was about midnight, and he picked me up in his Hilux car. We just started talking, and then just didn't stop talking for a fortnight. Made this record, just kept talking, and so it was anything but Godforsaken. It was just beautiful. And at the end of every recording session day, and sometimes it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, we'd play YouTube roulette, which is like, hey, this is a song that I really love. Oh yeah, well, I've got this one that I really love. And it was this beautiful, forging of kind of, I kind of left there going, he's not just someone that I want to make music with. He's a very dear friend.
And I think I'm on the train to Godforsaken is a song title you should use at some point.
It is actually a song, and I co-wrote it with. I did this co-write with Alan. Oh my God, isn't it terrible? Amazing
Alan Caswell.
Alan Caswell, thank you. You need to cut that out that I forgot his name. It's Miller Report writing, Sophie. You have to excuse me, right? Alan Caswell. It's an Alan Caswell song, and I co-wrote it with him, and I told him that story. He thought it was hilarious, and so so it is a song.
Well, talking about one of the songs that Shane worked on and your Golden Guitar winning song, Dirty River, which is about the Yarra, because you are a Melburnian. Not many people can write a love song about a dirty river, but you did. I'm wondering, what was the initial spark for that song?
It was during lockdown, and we in Melbourne had 5-kilometre bubbles that we could walk within. And within my bubble was the Yarra, and I kind of spent lots of time walking along the Yarra, kind of reflecting on the river, how it connected me to my history, how it connected me to a pre-colonisation history, how it was personal and universal, and it's a complex love, because there's parts of my city that are ugly, and parts of the river that are dirty, and so that was kind of all the thinking process that was behind it. Like I mean, there's kind of stories. There's kind of, it's a list song because it kind of just lists all of these experiences, and in the juxtaposition of all of those ideas is kind of this is my experience of the city, which is a collision of times and places and experiences and people.
And your latest single is Foursquare, and they're both on your album, The Cast. And Foursquare is another term for handball, which some people know as handball. And this song came out of you observing boys in the playground where you teach and then playing handball. And it is a song about forging your identity as a young man as well. I think it's about testing yourself against others, deciding who you want to be. But given that you probably observed that game over the course of a few years, I'm wondering, what was the point at which you thought, oh yeah, that's a song? Because you probably saw it for a long time before you thought it could be a song.
Yeah. I think I was really, it always fascinated me, especially because it was a game that was played particularly vehemently by year 12 boys. So it was like, you know, the kids right at the end, and they're kind of like 18-year-old men, but they're kind of forced into these little boy school uniforms. And because it's so close to the end of the year, some of them would be busting out of the uniforms and like not wanting to buy another pair of shorts or whatever. So it's like that scene from Alice in Wonderland where she drinks me or eats me or whatever the thing that she takes that makes her grow. And it's like these kids busting out of their school and wanting more power or more autonomy in their world than was provided by that kind of restrictive role of being a young person in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think my school does a beautiful job of fostering student voice, but there's just a power dynamic. Every time I know as a teacher that I walk into a classroom, I have a privileged position of authority. I have a position of privilege, and I can't necessarily see the world through their eyes. So the song in part was an attempt to get inside their heads and see what is that like? What is it like to be you? The other part of the writing process was it was written during lockdown when lots of these kids weren't able to play, and I was having Zoom calls and Zoom classes with kids, and you could sort of see their spirit waning and the Zoom cameras slowly flickering to off, and it was this kind of, it was quite a sad moment, but I kept remembering their resilience, because that's part of what they had taught me, especially during that time, because I was going through grief and loss around the death of my mum and dad, and my brother was dying at the same time. So I kind of felt like my own the Zoom camera of my kind of experience like flickering off too. And so I was holding on to this kind of memory of these kids like smacking a tennis ball for all it's worth to keep that energy and community and spirit of like fun alive. And that's what I tried to capture in the song.
I'm a great believer in the therapeutic benefits of whacking things, because I'm a tennis player myself, and I really think, humans can get a lot out of just regularly whacking something. But it's probably a subject for a different conversation. Now, you mentioned your parents dying and your brother dying as well, and that was a huge period of grief and change for you, and you documented a lot of that in your songs. And you've continued to go through some change over the past little while. You mentioned your boyfriend earlier on, and that was a big change for you, because that was a very new type of relationship. So I've got to say, as a fan of your music and as someone who has listened to your songs a lot and know that you write from the heart, I didn't feel like you'd actually hit that part of your story from your audience, if that makes sense. I actually just thought, well, this is Michael's story now. So I'm wondering if that's what it feels like for you too.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that I had been writing about it. I've been writing about the experience, especially of homophobia, for a lot of my kind of musical career, because I think it was like a lot of music for me as a writer is about me working through feelings. It's working through feelings through telling stories. And it was kind of coming to peace and coming to terms with a lot of those voices that had taught me how to hate a part of myself. And even the love songs to country Victoria, those are kind of rooted often in an experience of being quite damaged by being in that community. So when I kind of write about the experience of being there, it is it is helping me to remember what is valuable, what I love about growing up in those spaces too. But at its core, some of that stuff was really hard being a queer person in that space. It was really, really hard. And so I was in a really long-term relationship with a woman, and that was I never hid from her the fact that I was kind of somewhere along that spectrum of sexuality. But I kind of, over the last few years, things really started shifting within me, and I realised that I was not in the right relationship at all. And that's been really tough. It's been a really, really tough transition, because it's not just about a transition into being out and confronting the voices in my head that say people are going to hate you, they're going to abandon you, they're going to hurt you if they know this thing about you. It's about confronting those voices, because I think homophobia is more than just something that happens in your world. It's something that you internalise, it becomes a part of you. But also that it was about breaking up a relationship with someone that I still love. You know, that's a hard kind of relationship to end. So I think that's the complexity of where I've been through in the last little while. And I think, like, the Golden Guitar Awards was more than just about coming to Tamworth and in my head at the time not receiving an award. It was a deliberate decision that I had made to say, well, I'm going to confront this potential fear about just walking down a red carpet holding my boyfriend's hand and being okay with that. Because there was a part of me that was really afraid that if I came out in country music, that I might not be accepted, even though there are really brave pioneers who came out much earlier than I did, and have kind of, at a time when it was probably socially harder to do than what it is now. I still, like I said, it was those voices in my head that I felt afraid of kind of confronting.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to do it. Well, I was like, we bought the suits, and we didn't get to do it. So instead, we had this. There was this. Where we were staying in Bundaberg, there was a brown rug. And so instead of having like a red carpet event, we had a brown rug event, and we kind of dressed up in our suits. And when I did the acceptance speech, I thanked him for his support in a speech, but also put pictures of us kind of with each other in our suits. So we had the brown rug event instead of the red carpet event.
Well, I hope you're able to create some kind of event so you can wear those suits, basically.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just like that was the celebration, but like what I found too was that even though in my head I was going to be rejected by people, what I found instead from the country community was just love and support. It was like across the board, like musicians, fans, just lots of messages of kindness and support, and that kind of love helps to care for probably that little damaged teenager that still sits inside me somewhere and is afraid that he'll experience some of that rejection again. What I got was like, nah, we love you, or essentially, who cares?
I think it's also that, if people care about you, they're happy for you, and the audience cares about you, I think is a big part of it. And again, to go back to something I mentioned earlier, you're never going to know exactly who your music has touched because they don't necessarily say it to you, but perhaps the way they show you is by saying, we love you, that's great.
Yeah. I think I was really, like I said earlier, there was this team around me who kind of invested a lot of themselves in helping to promote my music. And initially I was really afraid of letting them down. Like somehow if I kind of came out that would damage this kind of brand of musician that they'd been trying to promote for a long time. And all three of them were really like, nah, like absolutely, we love you. And And there's actually, we actually don't want fans for you that are not going to love you for who you are.
Yeah.
And as you say, Sophie, I don't think that I've been completely, I don't think that I've hidden any of this. It's kind of always been there in my music. The title track, The Asphalt and the Oval, kind of is pretty, I think, pretty clear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that that song especially has come back as being a real centerpiece in what I do on stage. It's like it's kind of a moment of, it's become my anthem to help get through this really tough time. Yeah.
You mentioned fear, and I actually had written a question about that. And you also mentioned earlier about your students being resilient. And I'm intrigued that you say they taught you resilience, because I think the act of creating, as you have done very intensively, managing another job over 4 albums while living with that fear is an act of courage as well. And so I'm wondering about the role courage has played in your creative life, because when you're living with that kind of fear, it can be just even on an energy level, it can really take it out of you. And instead, you've had your full-time job, you've created these songs, you've created an audience, you've now won this award. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested.
I think fear plays a big part in my creative process, because often I have this feeling of like, oh, I shouldn't say that. Mm-hmm. And that's when I know that it's actually something important that I need to say. Right. And I remember when I wrote Asphalt and the Oval, because I kind of go through, sometimes there's an improvisational part of what I do where I'm kind of playing with language and melody. And I improvised the line Joe Gray used to say that I was queer. And I immediately blushed, like I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put that out into the world. Mm. And I just knew at that moment that I had to. And so fear is often the thing that I have used as the litmus test for authenticity. And you know, if it's a hard truth, then it won't be one that's easy to say. Yeah. I don't know. In terms of like the work with my students, like I kind of felt that there are obviously queer kids that I work with. I don't know who they are necessarily because it's not my business, but I do know that I am part of a team of people who is an important role model in their world, and it's part of my responsibility as an adult to also be clear and honest. Mm-hmm. Because I kind of felt in the end like that coming out process in part was about saying I need to make it okay for others in my world, including the kids that I teach, to come out. Part of what helped me to come out was the example of others. Mm-hmm. And stories of other people, and this constant message of like, you can do it and you'll be okay. It's mm-hmm. just, you know, that's the fear that you feel is not necessarily grounded in reality, or even if it is, know that we are here. Yeah. We are here. You've you know, we've been waiting for you. We're your community, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was the message that I heard, and I don't necessarily think that I'm going to be like the savior for anyone or anything, but I do feel that it's time to be visible so I can be a part of that community of care that might be for someone, someone who provides an example or a story of like, oh, he came out and he's okay. Mm. Yeah. Because the alternative for some people is that they choose not to be with us anymore. Yeah.
And that's not an alternative anyone wants.
No. Yeah.
And again, just to go back to that point of you'll never know the extent to which your stories reach other people, but they definitely do. I think it's once you make that courageous act, because it is a courageous act, I think, whether it's art or in life, to say this is truly who I am, and you know, and I'm standing in it, when there are so many other factors for all of us, I think, to say, you know, dull who you are, don't shine so brightly, particularly in the Australian culture. I think when we have this lingering tall poppy syndrome, it can be difficult. But again, that's possibly a conversation for another time. I've had you talking quite a while in the middle of a busy day, so my last question will be about your upcoming shows, because you are playing in Tasmania, New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, and these shows include the Sydney Folk Festival and the Gympie Muster. Now, my real question is, at the muster, do they provide you with a tent?
I bloody hope so, because sleeping, well, to be fair, I lied about being the outdoor type. I don't know. Oh man, I like that. Yeah. I'm actually hoping that they're going to provide me with a motel room. Do they have that there? Can they build one? Is that right?
I've actually not been, because I don't want to be in a tent. I don't like communal bathrooms.
Yeah, well, yes, I hear what you're saying. I look, to be fair, my brother actually lives about an hour's drive away, so I think we might be staying at his place. But I don't know that TJ is an outdoor type either. Maybe he's had more experience of camping than I have, but I think we just need to, we'll go in, do our shows, enjoy the music, and then drive back for an hour and sleep in a comfortable bed.
I think that sounds ideal. And Michael, I'm sure your audiences, wherever you're playing, will be delighted to see you. You always look like you're delighted to perform, and that's a real treat for an audience. It's been wonderful to speak to you. Congratulations again on the golden guitar, which was very well deserved, even amidst that crowded field.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you so much.
Okay.